What's up, everybody? Welcome to Lakers Central. I'm Alex, and that is Vinay. So, Vinay, it looks like we just got some breaking news with Caruso being out. Did you see that?
Yes, I did. Looks like it's a health protocol sort of thing. So, looks like it's probably COVID related. We don't know if he got it or if it's like a contact tracing thing like the John Wall and what happened with the Rockets and stuff like that. So, hopefully, we're just hoping that um, he stays healthy and the rest of the team, whatever contact they had, they're able to stay healthy as well. But we did get some good news. LeBron James is playing tonight. He's playing on during this back to back. So, that's kind of cool.
He is, and AD is back, right? I think Anthony Davis is playing tonight.
Yes, Anthony Davis is playing tonight. LeBron is playing tonight. Looks like everybody else has got a clean bill of health. So basically, that means we're going to get probably more Taylor Horton Tucker minutes. So that should be good. I've been wanting to see last game. He got, I think, that late shift in the fourth quarter. They never brought Caruso back, but they let Taylor kind of run the offense, and it was
Hmm.
kind of good to see kind of how he was running and stuff like that. So it seems like he may get another opportunity today to do the same thing.
Yeah, well, he'll probably get a few more minutes. That also means that Wes Matthews will probably get a few more minutes tonight, also, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
going up against Dame and CJ, we'll probably need a little more defense on the floor, and guys like KCP and Wes, they're gonna have their hands full, man, because Dame is nothing to mess around with.
Yeah, and you know what? This game should be a good game to see how the Lakers adjust. So they had really good intel last in the game one. They had sort of figured out what was the correct way to defend. Dame's favorite actions and stuff like that. And now it'll be very interesting to see what the Lakers do this time around because they do have different personnel. Obviously, they've got a better on-ball guy with Schroeder, who's been a lot better defensively than people look realize.
Hmm.
But Gasol is like a true big man, so we can't just let we're not going to be able to play drop coverage against those high pick and rolls and stuff like that Dame likes to run, like practically from half court and stuff like that, and let him step into wide open three. So it'll be very very interesting to see exactly how the Lakers like counter this because you don't want Portland to get loose from three. So I'll be curious to see how Dennis Schroeder manages navigating some of those screens that he's going to see against Dame in that matchup and just kind of how the Laker defense falls in behind them.
Well, the Lakers are coming off of another blowout, right? Back-to-back blowouts against Dallas and now against Minnesota. What, 127 to 91? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Towns was out, but were you expecting a blowout?
Um, I was not expecting a blowout. I thought, before the game started, if you remember, I mentioned like I thought what would happen was they would like come out shooting, and they had some pretty good guards and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
the Lakers kind of came out and threw the haymaker early on them, and
Yep.
and just turned it into a blowout. And I mean, it was really cool. That was the first time that we got a chance to see um, an offense that was like pretty much either transition offense or it was um, all the cutting and give and go
Hmm.
plays and all that kind of stuff. Like we didn't see too much pick and roll. We saw more just kind of Marcus Gasol at the top of the top of the key, just kind of making the decisions, and then just the Lakers getting out in transition. It certainly helped that what's it called? Kyle Kuzma came out and just was on completely on fire off of all the actions that he ran. So that was pretty awesome to see.
Now, he started off really hot. Like, I think he scored 20 points in the first half. He didn't have to really do anything in the second half because the Lakers hung 40 points in the first quarter. I mean, the offense was
Yeah.
clicking. Like, even LeBron didn't have to, LeBron didn't need to have a 25 or 30 point game. I think he had 18 points or something like that. I mean, the offense was
Yeah.
moving. It seemed like every guy was just doing their job. And this was without Anthony Davis, right? And so it felt like also Marc Gasol got to be on display last night. Like
Yeah.
Lakers fans got to see what he brings to this team. Him stretching the floor, his passing, even a little bit of his defense was on display. What did you see
Yeah.
out of him?
Yeah. No, I would say that's probably a good way of kind of putting it up. Like explain like we sort of balance out the scoring. There's scoring coming from everywhere. We got a chance to see. Um, I think the final score, the our game high was Kuzma with like 20, and I don't even think he scored very many points in the second half, if anything at all. So I
Nope.
thought that was pretty awesome. And like you said, we got a chance to see a very distinctively different offense. We were able to see against Dallas what a Dennis Schroeder, Anthony Davis pick and roll and stuff like that looks like, and then against the Wolves, who have decent defenders, but maybe the young guys aren't as disciplined when it's all the cutting and stuff like that. We saw the Lakers kind of take do whatever they want with some of those matchups and stuff like that. And I thought it was kind of cool that like as soon as LeBron went out and like Montrezl came in and Schroeder was still on the floor, they like immediately started running like a few actions, and Montrez got a jumper right off the bat, like the very next possession after the substitution, like at one of his first possessions on the floor, I thought. And then like I think the next two possessions were pull up jumpers for Schroeder. One he missed, and the other one he just got a little bit closer to the rim and he took it, and that looked good. And then like for the most part, like the theme, at least these past two games, have been like the Lakers' offense is humming along, man. Like it's kind of crazy to see what happens with these games when you have a competent offense, and it kind of goes to tell you that like, can you imagine how much better this team would have been last year if we had like a competent like bench offense? How much like less headache there probably would have been for fans just watching the games. So I mean, I'm happy that they're playing as well as they're playing. But that I think that's the thing that we're going to keep our eyes on as fans. We want to make sure that the offense keeps humming along and too distinctly difficult. I will say that the only really difficult team defensively that we've played so far is the Clippers, and obviously we lost that game. But we haven't. Well, it feels like the Lakers haven't been pressed to play super crazy defense. It feels like they've just, because their offense has been so good, like the bench can come in and just trade baskets. So that's great. Like in my opinion, I was like, all right, that's fine. Just trade baskets. Like during the regular season, we should probably try to get our offenses in sync as much as possible. And like once that's good to go, like we can focus on defensive principles and all that kind of stuff. Like as the season goes on. So, and I will say the other thing is we haven't seen Montrez be the liability that everybody's been saying that he is. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, that's something I want to talk about because when the Clippers lost in the bubble this past season, all we heard was one of the major reasons was because Montrez was terrible on defense, and I know you've talked about this. You've certainly talked about it in your newsletter. Uh, Matching him up against Nikola Jokic and even look, anyone playing Jokic is going to have some issues, but
Yeah.
a lot of the issues that Jokic gave to Clippers, all those weren't necessarily against Trez. So Trez kind of got the short end of the stick when the Clippers melted down, but
Mm-hmm.
he's been really good with the Lakers defensively so far. It's only been 3 games, and I can't recall what the plus minus was that someone posted, or his defensive rating, but it's been through the roof. And we knew that when he joined the Lakers, it would be a bit different because Frank Vogel and the Lakers coaching staff is a much better defensive team than that Clippers coaching staff was last year. But they've been really good about putting him in the right spot, and he's not being dominated. Now again, it's not like Towns played last night and he had to guard him, or Porzingis wasn't out there against Dallas, and the Clippers, they don't have this dominant center. So again, you,
Mm-hmm.
you look at the sample size, and it's not like there's Shaq isn't walking through those doors again, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
competition, but he's still not giving up anything with the guys that he's playing, and he's holding his own, and I think that's important. So, um, you think that's just a circumstance of who we're playing, or do you think there's something here?
No, um, I think it's a little bit of both. As it relates to like just kind of people, our individual players being overwhelmed. There's certainly times where they've had like miscommunications and stuff like that, and just kind of had some issues defensively. But we've talked about it before. Like defensive stuff is like you really have to have like buy-in between all five guys. Like, you know, a lot of folks are happy with the way Kuzma has been shooting and stuff like that, but for us, we're trying to also make sure that his defensive prowess is also up there as well. And one of the things that like we have to remember is that like he's only as good as the guy that's standing behind him, you know.
Yep.
And if there's no threat of a backline defense, or if you run like a floor spacing five, right? Like Dallas likes to run a floor spacing five. That Dwight Powell setting screens all the way at the 3-point line, or they'll have Maxi Kleber setting three screens up there, setting around the perimeter. Like those guys, Powell is actually a good defender, but like Kleber isn't like scaring somebody from attacking the rim, like verticality wise or just physicality wise either.
Right.
And so, like sometimes you can put that on like your perimeter defender for not being able to stay in front of somebody, but in the modern NBA, the way the ref things, like it's very very difficult to keep anybody in front of you. So if you're talking about like an all-star MVP caliber kind of scorer, a Luka Doncic, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, like they're always going to break you. They're going to get by you no matter what, because you just can't touch them, right? You can't hold them up or nothing like that. So the importance of having a backline defender is like it's almost more important than being being a better on ball defender, because it deters people. It deters the offensive player from wanting to attack the rim, because the way they're thinking about it in his mind is like, look, even if I get by this guy, it's going to turn into a 1-on-2. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think like putting our bigs in a good position to be successful is something that the Lakers will try to do. They'll put Montrez in a help defender situation, not in a situation to be put into isolation against certain guys. And I think he'll be all right. I think he'll be good, and I think the Lakers' defense will improve as the season goes on. I think this will be a good test tonight, because we know Portland's defense isn't the greatest, but they put on they can put up points, and their debut game, or Houston's debut game against Portland, Harden put up like 44, but
Yeah.
CJ McCollum was like going like basically bar for bar with him. Like he put up 44 himself, and he actually looked better than Dame did that game. Just like running their offense and stuff like that. So we just gotta see. We gotta see what kind of defense it looks like. As important as the Dame and Schroeder matchup is going to be, the CJ versus the platoon of guys that have to guard him, whether it's Kuzma, whether it's West, whether it's KCP, that's going to be just as important, because Caruso was pretty instrumental in the playoffs at hassling Dame and stuff like that. So that's just the way the Lakers are going to have to do it by committee. We may even see THT get minutes on Dame. So it'll depend on like what the foul situation is and stuff like that, because Dame is also a very sneaky foul drawer. Annoying, I will say, because he knows how to game the refs, but he is a very sneaky foul drawer. So that Lakers could be in trouble if they're not sharp on the defensive end.
Yeah, Lakers are going to need to be disciplined, and as potent an offense as Portland can be with Dame and CJ, they're averaging 114 points. The Lakers are averaging 124 points early on in the season, which is
ridiculous.
And that AD missed the game already, and they're still putting up ridiculous amount of points. So they're not having any problem scoring the basketball. And so what was really good to see last night was that even though Kuz got hot, it didn't feel like he was forcing anything. And last year, he might get hot and he would start forcing shots just to heat check shots like guys always do. I didn't get the sense that he did any of that last night. It was almost like everything he shot was within rhythm. And I think Marc Gasol had a lot to do with that. Do you think with Anthony Davis returning tonight, does that throw off how the Lakers run the offense through Gasol?
That is a good question. It could some of the high post or the top of the key action that we got with Gasol may not be as prevalent. If they opt for Anthony Davis isolations instead. So that is a good question. I'd be curious to see how they balance that sort of that part of it out. I think an interesting difference with that tandem that's going to be is to see how much floor spacing actually helps LeBron out, because Portland was one of the teams in the playoffs that was like fully dedicated, and they don't have Hassan Whiteside anymore, but they were fully dedicated to making sure that LeBron or Anthony Davis couldn't get any shots at the rim. So I'm going to be very curious to see what ends up happening, like what sort of difference Gasol can make, just kind of standing out on the perimeter or running in transition and stuff like that, and being out on the 3-point line for LeBron. If LeBron looks good early on, it should be good for the offense. But for Anthony Davis, I mean, I don't think he had a really serious injury. It was just like a calf contusion. I think he got kicked in the calf or something like that. in the prior game, so I think he was probably just sore. So the same thing that we're gonna want to do is like keep an eye on like what does his mid-range jump shot look like if Portland's trying to take away the rim and stuff like that. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Lakers manage that. But that's a good point. We didn't have the Lakers went with the stretch four in Kuzma essentially
Hmm.
last game, and it resulted in Gasol's best game of the early season so far. So what's going to happen now when Anthony Davis comes back? And do they find some way to keep Gasol out there in a specific type of lineup situation so they can make more use of that cutting and all
Right.
that sort of stuff? So I will be curious to see what happens. I don't think Portland has Zach Collins. They play Nurkic. I don't even know who their backup big is anymore. But if it's like a big, like a plotting big, then it could be more minutes for Gasol. Because Nurkic isn't, he's not really going to take Gasol off the dribble like that. He's a little bit more of a traditional post-up guy.
I mean, they signed Harry Giles, and he's not a big guy. So if they're gonna
Yeah,
run him out
he's
there,
definitely not.
yeah.
Yeah. Their backup center, it's Ennis Canner. So yeah, maybe Gasol does
Oh
get some
yeah.
minutes out there. Canner's not going to be the guy who, he's not going to be the guy who, what's it called? Like, is out there shooting threes and stuff like that. And I think Carmelo Anthony's out tonight because of COVID related stuff. So
Hmm.
they're a little shorthanded themselves. They don't have Zach Collins either. So it'll be interesting to see. But Portland's another team, has a lot of athletes: Lillard, McCollum, Simons, Trent Jr. They'll also have Derrick Jones. I saw him playing a lot and then of course they have Robert Covington, the guy that they traded for. They traded 2 first-round picks for him. So that it'll be very interesting to see how that sort of goes.
Yeah, I mean, look, they brought in Covington, and I'm wondering, you think his minutes shadow LeBron's? Like he's gonna basically chase LeBron around all game?
Hmm. I think they're going to put him on Anthony Davis
Really?
because I don't think that he can stand. Yeah, I don't. He's got good hands and he's actually a really good help defender, but they don't really have a guy with like real length to
Hmm.
defend Anthony Davis, like especially with no Carmelo.
Right.
Um, so I think they're going to put. I don't think they're going to put him on. I think they're going to put. Who's their starting three? Oh man, I can't even remember. I feel like
I mean,
I
is it
just
Derek
watched them play.
Derek Jones?
I don't think he's their starting. Oh yeah, maybe it is. Oh no, I think Rodney Hood. So they may put Hood or something like that.
Yeah.
So they may put Derek Jones or Rodney Hood, or even Gary Trent Jr., a smaller guy. They did that. They did that in the playoffs. They may try like a platoon of different guys on LeBron,
Right.
hopefully to change up his matchups. But again, like LeBron's too smart, man. If he gets a small guy or kind of a lightweight sort of guy like Derrick Jones Jr. on him, he's going to try and take him right to the post. And if Gasol's out there standing at the 3-point line, they may go and double him early. That opens up. We may get another game where Gasol gets really good looks early from the 3-point line. And if he's making them, it changes the dynamic of how that defense has to be played against the Lakers. So this is a team that's as the season goes on, it's going to be very pick your poisony kind of thing. Like you're not going to be able to just settle in and just say, okay, we're not going to let LeBron or Anthony Davis um, get shots at the rim because this team can shoot threes. Like that
Hmm.
was another thing. The Lakers couldn't make a three to save their life last season. And I mean, Kuzma's shooting extraordinarily from three. Even Caruso is shooting
Yeah,
like
he is.
amazingly from three, even in like only 1 or 2 attempts a night. So Markeith continues to shoot it up from three. Schroeder, we already know, is
Yep.
great. So um, we'll see, man. It's a good position to be in. It's cool as a Laker fan because we don't know what version we're gonna get. Are we gonna get a pick and roll version of the Lakers? Are we gonna get
Right.
a cutting and all that sort of direction? Like, what is the optimal way to play against this team? So we're relearning all of these matchups. Like going into the playoffs last year, or when we saw when we went to go play against Portland, we were like, okay, we know LeBron just has to dominate his matchup. Anthony Davis will grab the boards and do all that other stuff. But now with Anthony Davis's shooting and all these other guys, it's like, all right, now how do we attack them? Like we have so many different ways that we can go. And I think what I don't know if you caught the post game stuff that LeBron was talking about. He was talking about like how they've talked internally as a team where nobody on this team has to take a bad shot. Like you don't have to be forced into a bad shot.
Hmm.
And that's cool, man. Like, because for the past 7 years, we were watching a lot of bad shots get taken, because of the limitations of some of the offense of some of the guys that were on the floor. So, um, I'm just curious. I feel like I'm rewatching. I'm watching a brand new team. Like, we know what LeBron and Anthony Davis are going to get us, but it feels like we're watching a brand new team all of a sudden.
Well, the crazy thing is, it's less stressful watching this team right now.
Yeah,
They've got
yeah,
their championship. We want them to win again, but kind of the burden of them being great again is kind of off right now. So they've got their championship, and they come out and they jump on these teams, and I think it's a lot easier to play good defense when you're up early on
mm-hmm.
and you're burying these teams. And Lakers, they're coming at you in waves now. Like last season, it was LeBron and Anthony Davis, and after that, maybe you got a hot night out of Kuzma or something like that. Maybe
Yeah,
KCP got hot, but like this year, LeBron doesn't need to get it going, for this team to blow you out clearly. Kuzma can come at you,
yeah,
LeBron can come at you, Schroeder, Trez. But then the way the offense clicks with even guys like Marcus All, they just keep coming. And I was watching that game last night against the Timberwolves, and it was like, Caruso was hitting threes. They were throwing like cross court passes to Keith in the corner, and he's knocking down threes. I mean,
yeah.
like the offense was fluid. THT was knocking down threes. I mean, even KCP tried to that dunk he tried to pull off when he jumped, like, I don't know what he was doing, man. I was just like, these guys are nuts. Like, they're feeling
Yeah,
themselves.
okay. So he's done that before, okay? Like, I've seen him put, like, cock it back, like he's gonna, like, it's like an NBA Jam game, and
Yeah,
then he just, like, loses the ball or something like that. So it's definitely like there's something about the way that he takes those where it seems like he, like, kind of, like, wants that moment. Like, he thinks
right.
of that Space Jam moment where Michael just pulls it back and dunks on, like, five people. The way I will say what I'll tell you this. Um, the way he attacks the rim with, like, a viciousness,
Yeah,
and I think that's really good for the Lakers because the only guy that we think of that really does that is LeBron because
right.
he's a big body and stuff like that. But it's really really cool to see a guy because that changes, like, the energy of your team when you have a guy who's willing to, um, just attack the rim the way that he does. So I I just don't want him to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I think last game somebody got slapped in the face. It feels like almost every single game, one Laker on our team that's on the floor either gets poked in the eye or slapped in the face in some
Yeah.
form. So I just want us to stay healthy. We had Braun's ankle tweak, and obviously have a Caruso situation. Just want to stay healthy. I love the balls to the wall defense, but when we're up 30 points or we're up 36, we don't need it. Like, it's all right, guys. Just let them take the layup and we'll just trade baskets. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to do it right now because um, we got to stay healthy. So that's the way I sort of see it.
So Jeff Santos is back in the comments to remind us that he mentioned we would win by 40 last night, and we won by 36. But he's talking about a 20-point victory today. We could look. This Lakers team is good. We could certainly win by 20. I always
Yeah.
err on the side of caution because all these teams are good. Portland's a really good team, but we could win by 20. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we could win. So the Lakers are favored by 5.5. You know, that's just how people are betting. They could win by 20. They could also just win by two.
Yep.
It really comes it really comes down to, like, uh, what their offense looks like. Again, Portland's not a good defensive team, so our assumption should be that the Lakers' offense should continue to play very very well, and get the shots that they want, for Montrez and Schroeder and all those guys. So that's what I'm expecting. It really just comes down to what version of our defense do we get, and it's crazy to say because the Lakers had one of the best defense, like the best defense in the NBA last season, like a top three,
Mm-hmm.
top two defense. But we know that they're being very safe with their minutes and just
Right.
kind of how they approach the game and stuff like that. So not having Caruso tonight will make a big difference. So it'll be important for Taylor Horton Tucker to kind of fill those shoes and stuff like that. But look, man, if they keep blowing teams out that the way that, if they keep putting up 125 a night and keep blowing teams out like this, like, I every one of these games is going to turn into that sort of thing. And maybe 10, 15 games from now, if we have like less than 5 losses on the books, like somebody put up a schedule of what our like next 10 games are going to be, and like I looked at them and I was just like, I don't know how many of these games we're going to lose. Like there's some competitive team that's going to catch us sleeping or something like that, or maybe LeBron
Right.
will sit out a game, but there are a lot of winnable games. So I wouldn't be surprised if the same theme that we had last season, where the Lakers would win like 7, then they would lose one, win 10, and then lose
Yep.
one. Like that may be the theme of this season. The main difference being we don't have to play crazy ass defense to win some of these games. We just the offense just keeps going. And last game, Kuzma started off hot, and the Lakers I think had like a 12-point lead or something like that when Braun went to the bench, and within like 2-3 minutes it extended to 20 points. Like we just didn't have that. We never had that like last
No.
season. So it's pretty awesome. If that happens again tonight, like it's going to be a blowout. Like I'm sure Portland will go on their runs and stuff like that,
Right.
but it's that's been the theme so far. But Portland is a good team. They're not a great defensive team, but they're a good offensive team. So that's the way I would approach it. And I'll be curious to see. The guys that I'm very interested to see in this matchup are going to be Taylor Horton Tucker, Dennis Schroeder, Wesley Matthews, and Kyle Kuzma, because I want to see how those guys defend against the carousel of offensive, or sorry, the tandem of CJ McCollum and Dame Lillard.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to see how they defend them. It'll be important for us to understand like if there's going to be some slippage,
Yeah.
and also just how does Gasol defend early? What do the Lakers do? Do they have him go and stunt? Are they trying to trap Dame early on just to kind of confuse him and stuff like that? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm curious to see that as well, and it's good to see THT get minutes. I mean, he's going to be playing against two high-profile guards, so if there was ever a couple guys to throw him out there against, this is his opportunity. Lakers fans love this guy, so let's see what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
Portland's good. I don't. I think the Lakers are in a tier all by themselves right now. This particular season,
Clearly.
Portland.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're a playoff team. I don't know where I rank them right now. I think that they're probably the bottom half of the West. I don't know if I have them any higher than that yet, but they're a good team. They can get hot, and like I said earlier, the Lakers can come at you at waves, and I don't expect this Lakers team to. I don't expect them to be a top 3, top 5 defense this year, but really because they don't have to. Like I think that that's the big thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be all about resting their star guys. I think they've got a good enough supporting cast this year where they can kind of rest guys. And like LeBron
Yep.
says, no one needs to do too much. And if you look across to
Yep.
the East Coast with what happened to the Nets just today with Spencer Dinwiddie getting hurt, I mean, a lot of people were picking the Nets to make it to the finals. And, you want to keep your guys as
Attrition.
healthy. They're freak, accidents that happen, but you want to be able to kind of sustain certain injuries. And so we don't want that to happen to any of our guys.
Yeah. The regular season is a game of attrition.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be careful. Like the Kawhi injury, even I think the Spencer Dinwiddie injury happened because his own teammate fell into his knee or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So like, very tough situations and stuff like that. But you have to survive the game of attrition. Even watching, like I was like, look, I won't be surprised even if LeBron says his ankle feels fine. I won't be surprised if and he's playing today. But if the Lakers can jump out early, I hope Vogel
Yeah.
doesn't put him out there because ankle sprains are very, very easy to redo.
Reaggravate.
And
Yep.
yeah, and you have Braun when he gets defended by smaller guys. Smaller guys get into your foot space, not on purpose, just because that's how physics. That's how it
Mm-hmm.
works when you have a smaller defensive guy, and that's why Braun keeps getting spraining his ankle and stuff like that. The last one that he did last game, it wasn't anything intentional. It's just there's a smaller guy who's kind of in that area where Braun would take that step, and that's why Braun ended up. He was trying to set up the spin move that he likes to do, and he accidentally turned his ankle. So like that's the way I would like for the Lakers to no matter how I know he wants to get Kareem's record and he wants to do it as a Laker. So I would like for him to be healthy when he does it and
Yeah.
not put too much strain. If he tweaks that ankle again, I wouldn't be surprised if Vogel's like, all right, we're not doing this anymore. Like I'm not. This is
Right.
3 games in a row. Like we don't need it to become like a seriously bad, big problematic thing. But I trust Braun to be smart about it too as well. So I don't know if you saw this. Did you see the Kuzma versus Taylor? So I've seen this on my timeline because of the folks that I follow and just kind of in passing. There's been a lot of Kuzma versus Taylor Horton Tucker stuff, and there's been some conversation about Kuzma having to start. Kuzma should start, right?
Hmm.
Now, have you seen those before we get into the? Have you seen the conversations that have sort of been happening in regards to that?
Yeah, and I'm already tired of it.
Okay, all
Because
right, yeah,
I'm not that I'm tired of having it with you. I know the direction that the fan base is starting to go with the Kuzma
yeah.
and THT thing. So, but yeah.
Okay, so what? So I'm not going to ask. So I think you and I are probably on the same page when we say that we don't think Kuzma needs to start or he has to start.
Yeah.
It's very clear that he's very capable of being a starter.
Right.
And the luxury that the Lakers have is that they've got a young guy who is willing to buy into his role, even though
Hmm.
he is very capable of being a starter. And he is being compensated accordingly. $13
That's
million
right.
to come off the bench is quite a bit of money for a
Hmm.
non-starter, especially considering what some of the other guys who do less than he does while getting the same minutes are getting paid. So I don't think there's any question about that. But I think the only thing I wanted to say about it was this, and we'll probably cover it on a podcast once we do like a recap of like how the first 5 games or whatever have
Yep.
gone, just kind of our learnings from it. But one of the things that I think folks should understand is Horton Tucker and Kuzma can always play together. Their skill sets do not overlap with each other the way that people think they do. Horton Tucker is an on-ball guy, and Kuzma is very clearly an off-ball guy. And they can actually work together as soon as they build passing chemistry and cutting chemistry and all that sort of stuff. So as it relates to that conversation, they work together. So that one shouldn't get more minutes, or one shouldn't be. I would say one shouldn't be discouraged, right? So I wouldn't say that we should say, oh, okay, well, Kuzma's better than Horton Tucker, so Horton Tucker's not good, or he
Right.
can't be better. I think it should be more like these are things that Horton Tucker can improve on. These are things where Kuzma can still continue to improve on, more on the defensive end and stuff like that. Um, but the Kuzma needs to start stuff. Folks need to understand it's just not going to happen. He's playing behind LeBron James and he's playing behind Anthony Davis, the 3 and the 4 spot. He is not a 2. He can defend guys that play the 2 spot in theory, but that are big guys like 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" guys. The Jason Tatum's, the Jalen Browns, those
Right.
guys. Um, that's the way Frank Vogel has been deploying him, and the way that we need to think about how Kuzma gets used is more in regards to what his physical attributes are. He's
Hmm.
a 6'8", moves his feet, has some trouble sometimes against craftier ball handlers staying in front of them. Putting Kuzma on CJ McCollum can work as long as CJ McCollum is not blowing by him repeatedly. If he's keeping CJ in front of him and forcing CJ to take contested jump shots over him, that's great. That means Kuzma's doing his job. But the moment he keeps getting blown by left and right, that becomes a problem. That's why you'll see Kuzma on guys like Paul George. You'll see Kuzma on guys, like in spot minutes against like Luka and stuff like that. So we can't put him over KCP because KCP is much better at chasing guys around screens. So the
Right.
sets that they like to run for CJ McCollum, the sets that they like to run for Dame Lillard, you need to have guys who are willing to run around screens because early in offense, that's the kind of stuff that people want to do. Now, if the Lakers come and play against a team that just runs pure isolation all the time, right? Like a team like the Clippers, you can play somebody like Kuzma because it's easier. He just has to take care of the guy that's in front of him, or he switches or whatever
Hmm.
it is, depending on what the scheme is. But against teams like the Blazers that have guys that routinely screen for their best 2 scorers, Kuzma's not good at that because he's a big guy. He's 6'8".
Yep.
Like I don't know, I don't know how many folks have ever sat, but go and play with a 6'8" guy. Like I played in games like when I played in high school, and then like when I played like like even the 24 I used to go to all over the place. We used to get like I used to live in Anaheim, so we used to get guys from Cal State Fullerton that used to come by,
Hmm.
and they were big guys, 6'5", 6'6". Some of my buddies are D1 players, some of them play overseas, and they're big guys, 6'5", 6'6". When I take a screen from a teammate to get away from that guy, when he's 6'6", because I'm much more lower to the ground, it's easier for me to do that because it's
Hmm.
not easy for a 6'6" guy or a 6'8" guy to get around, no matter how good of a lockdown defender you are. And so screens make things much more difficult for a guy like Kuzma. And he doesn't have the technique to shed screens that way. And it's much easier for smaller guys to shed screens. Dennis Schroeder has been phenomenal. Like the way he
Yes.
gets around screens and doesn't allow guys to get the edge on him is fantastic. KCP is another guy who's excellent at that. And so, especially for like a matchup like tonight, that's what we got to see. You know, we want guys who can get around screens and can make sure that they can keep CJ and them in front of him. And Kuzma will get his chance when they go to that CJ isolation plus all the bench guys offense, like spacing it out and stuff like that. Those will probably be the situations that we see Kuzma get matched up against CJ. But it's always based on the scheme. It's always based on the size matchup. That's the way Vogel looks at it. And we've been successful with it. So we just kind of have to trust that process. And look, man, Kuzma's been phenomenal this season so far, and he's bought into his role, and there's nothing more that I can possibly ask from him.
I think that's the best part. Like we talked about this when he got his extension. Like and same thing with Schroeder. The Lakers are taking the whole money thing off the table. Like guys don't have to
Yep.
worry about playing really well, so some team sees them and wants to offer them a big contract. They're taking that off the table. So Kuz got his money. He can certainly opt out in a couple years and get a new contract if he sees fit and he's played well enough for it. But right now, he's playing so well within the role that the Lakers are asking him to play within. I see no reason to make a change. And the thing is, he is good enough to start. And if someone was to go down or someone needed, a few days rest, he's capable of filling that role. But I don't see a reason to make any changes to the starting lineup right now. I mean, I know Vogel's gonna mess around with it just because, but for a guy that so many Lakers fans didn't want on this roster coming into the season, to hear people say that he should start over KCP, another guy that a lot of Lakers fans didn't like for a few years. I think that the way things are going. So let me back up for a second. So you had Dennis Schroeder come into this season, and he said he wanted to start, and some Lakers fans rolled their eyes, like, "Wait a minute, what's this guy doing?" And he
Yeah.
started, and he looks great starting, right? KCP looks great starting. The entire starting lineup looks really, really good. And when Kuzma gets his opportunity to start like he did last night, he went off. And even coming off the bench, I think he's such a great spark. The Lakers, to have another guy that can give you 20 off the bench, on a good night, along with Trez, there's just to me no reason to do anything different. And
Yeah.
just like with Trez, Kuzma's not this terrible defender that some people think that he is. I think he's a capable defender. I think that he works hard. I think matchups matter in terms of who he's defending. I think right now we're getting everything out of him that we need to. And so
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't switch Kuzma to the start. Putting him at the two guard, if he had to guard C.J. McCollum, like guys like that on a regular basis, he's getting cooked. Like I think that's
Yeah.
too much to ask of him. So no, I wouldn't make any changes. I don't know where that's coming from. Like, where do you think that's
I,
coming from
it,
all of a sudden?
I think it's the I think within every fan base you get within every fan base, as in the Laker fan base, you'll always get folks that align with very specific players. Some people like Kuzma, some people like Taylor Horton Tucker. But then you also get subsections of the fan base that are
Yeah.
anti whoever that is. And I think what ends up happening is people take, and there's also this thing, right? Like on NBA Twitter, there's like basketball intellectualism is a thing, right? Like people want to be smart when they
Right.
talk about basketball, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like being in the barbershop, right? You want to be
Mm-hmm.
right. That's the whole point of the barbershop, back and forth, the MJ Braun stuff or whatever. You want to be right. So I get that, but I think folks take it too much to heart sometimes. Where once they've made a position, that they refuse to deviate from the position at times,
Yep.
and then there are folks who need to like remind you that you were wrong, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
not to make them like in some form to make themselves feel better. So I think what ends up happening is people take their positions and then they start reminding each other, right? Like if I wanted, like I'll give you a personal example. If I wanted to be petty, I could start retweeting all the people who told me that Kuzma should have been traded at the mid-season mark last year. And many of those folks are prominent folks on Lakers Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what do I get out of that? Like we're both Laker fans, right? So who
Right.
cares? Like, well, what do I get by telling you that you were wrong about your perception of Kuzma or the analytics that you were using to evaluate how he was being used? Does it like has a huge blind spot for what his actual skill set is?
Mm-hmm.
There's no goodness in that, and I'm not like I don't. It's great that I get followers on because of the people like the content and stuff that I put on NBA Twitter, But I'm not here like the energy that we don't want to put out as fans. And of course, I'm not saying that one fan is better than the other because they do that, or I'm better than other folks because of that. Some people just want to get it out the way they want to get it out. It's just there's no benefit to fighting within the fan base
Right.
unless there's clearly something that's like this guy's clearly not a good player, right?
Hmm.
And there, we need to look at it the other way. We're clearly in a position where both these guys are very good assets for the Lakers. Kuzma's playing great in what he's being asked to do, and Taylor Horton Tucker's playing great in what he's being asked to do. We can't extend Taylor Horton Tucker, so there's no financial conversation to be had as it relates to him.
Right.
Kuzma's already gotten paid, and we've already gotten a championship. So we're playing with house money right now, really. And so that's the way I kind of see it. I think folks just have to discard the personal feelings, the personal attachments to the takes that they have. And look, to be honest, NBA Twitter has the memory skills of a hamster. So nobody even remembers half of the stuff that like you argued about. So it's like the only person that's making this a recurring conversation is whoever it is that's making these arguments over and over again. So who cares? That's the way I always see it. Like there's nothing. I don't win any points by dunking on somebody. You know what I mean? Like maybe I'll get a couple of followers but I can give myself a pat on the back and feel good. But in the end, we're all the same fans, and so that's really what matters.
I agree. Well, guys, we're going to get ready and get out of here. We're going to end with this comment and question from Michelle Medina. It was her birthday yesterday, and she asked us
It was.
if the Lakers would give her a win. And so, Michelle, they gave you your win, and no thanks. You don't have to thank us for giving you a happy birthday. That's what we do. Shout out to every Lakers fan that celebrated a birthday yesterday, but especially you. But you want to know who will be the third leading scorer tonight. But now you want to take a stab at that?
I think the third leading scorer tonight is going to be. I'm going to put my money on Montrezl Harrell. I
Ooh,
think Montrezl Harrell is going to have a very interesting game tonight. I don't think Portland has the depth to deal with him. I think they'll be hyper focused on LeBron and Dennis Schroeder, and they have more guard wing heavy. They're a very wing heavy team, and they don't really have too much in terms of like because Melo's not there and Collins is hurt. They don't have too many guys that are good. Bruisers on the
yeah.
inside, and I think Montrez may be due for a nice game. And the Lakers, I think, are going to keep trying to go to that interior, attack them on the inside, and not just settle for jumpers and threes.
I think that's a good one. And in terms of how many people will have the double figures, I'm just going to go with a safe number. I think 5 players will be in double figures tonight for the Lakers. I think that that's reasonable. Obviously, LeBron and Anthony Davis. I think that both
Yeah.
Trez and Schroeder should get there. And then at that point, Kuz
Yep.
should be the fifth guy. But I think 5 guys getting double figures for the Lakers. And I think we win by 10 points. I really do. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see how it plays out. Game starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. So I think we'll be back this evening for a post game. I was tired last night, guys. Sorry. That's why we didn't do one last night. So I will do my best to be up tonight so we can give you guys a post game when the Lakers get this win. So as always, thank you guys so much for joining us for these pre games. Thank you for listening to the podcast. And we'll talk to you soon. You've been watching Lakers Central.